Carl, there are so many emerging founders that can't get out of their own way, or they're afraid to make that big hire, to hire a president or CEO for their company, even though they know that's where they need to go next. I'd love for you to share, if you kind of go back in time for when you started with those guys, right, in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the transition as they brought somebody into their home, being you, right? They were the founders and they brought you in, and I'm sure they respected you because of your franchise experience, but at the same time, they were kind of relinquishing a little bit of control. And I'd love to kind of hear about that transition on how you helped make that all happen and how smoothly it went.
Yeah, it went really smooth. You know, they took a big risk on me. They, of course, saw my portfolio and my history. So they saw what I had already created and what I accomplished. So that definitely helped them make that decision. But yes, it definitely was a transition. We ended up adding EOS, Entrepreneur Operating Systems. We added that process to help organize the entire business, to make sure that we have an org chart and we have processes and systems in place, and everybody knows their role and responsibilities, which I think is really important. Oftentimes, when the CEO comes on board, there's what is the CEO supposed to do versus the founders? Like, what's the roles? How do they jive? I think oftentimes there's probably they don't have transparency there. And we created that transparency really quick. And we did a lot of personality tests. So that way I could identify what each person already knew what Nick's strengths and weaknesses were, but I needed to know what the founder's strengths and weaknesses were. So that way we could make sure we're in the right seat. Because big in EOS is the right person in the right seat. The right seat is, do you get it? Do you want it? And do you have the capacity to do the job? And so we just identified all those things, and it made for a smooth process. And I'll be honest, like usually founders, a lot of them will like, I got to keep a thumb on everything. I'm almost like a manager. And they really did take a seat back and they really let me take charge, and it's benefited them because we've seen incredible growth over the last few years. Of course, COVID, definitely we hit a few bumps in the road through COVID, but everybody did. It wasn't just us, but we made it out stronger. And now we're sitting in a good place. We're starting to get these multi-unit franchisees that are interested in us and buying territories. And so that's good. But I just sat on a panel at the Restaurant and Bar conference that happened last month, and we talked about franchising for new restaurants. And I was at the front door as everybody was entering to listen to this panel, and I introduced myself and I asked them, how many restaurants do you have? Because I wanted to know my audience before I talked to them. I want to know, like, or does most of these people have 10 stores, corporate stores, or do they have 2? And most of them had 2 to 3 corporate locations, and they were looking at franchising. And I'll be honest with you, my conversation to them was like, the restaurant business really well, but the franchise business is a totally different business. Like running a restaurant and running a franchise, it's like, it's totally different, skill levels, et cetera. And so I definitely talked to that group, and I said, look, like, you're good at managing your restaurants. I'm good at franchising. And so, you need to learn franchising, or you have to hire a CEO or a VP of ops that understands franchising at an emerging level that could come and help you with those processes and systems. So that way you do it the right way. Because, man, I see all the time that you get these founders that have 2 or 3 restaurants, and they think, okay, the quickest buck is going to be franchising. Well, it's not true. It's not true, man. It's expensive to do it right. Like, if you're going to do it right, you need $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And the way we did it was we took corporate stores that were making really good money, and we were able to fuel the franchise from those profits. If you don't have that, then where do you get the money? I guess you could get it from friends and family. Bank's not going to give it to you. So it's tricky. But to wrap that up, I mean, you definitely need to have either a consultant or someone that understands franchising if you are a founder of 1 to 2 restaurants wanting to make that leap to franchise.
Sure. Carl, how many company-owned locations did you guys have before franchise? I know you said they had 3 before you started, right? And then did you guys open up any more company-owned locations before you guys launched franchising?
We had 2 locations that we had open and operating. And we had already started one franchise, but as far as like, I said, look, in order to franchise, like we need all these things in place and it's not free. So we need to open up another corporate store. So we had 2 stores that we had open operating that we were pulling profits from.
Okay. And so where are we now? How many franchise owned locations do we have?
Franchise, we have 26 franchise locations, and then the rest are corporate stores, which are 7, fixing to be 8. We're fixing to open up an 8th corporate store in the next month and a half.
Okay, and you guys are in 2 states, right? Texas and Louisiana.
Texas and Louisiana. Look, the beautiful thing is, everybody says everything's bigger in Texas, and it's really true. I mean, we could do 150 stores in Texas. I mean, between Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston is pretty much sold out. We have 4 or 5 territories left, which is going to be sold in the next couple months. And so, yeah, I mean, just Texas. I mean, it's just, we could do so many. And that's another strategy that that's important to me, is keeping our stores clustered together close. We have leads that come in that want to open up in Colorado and Jersey and all these different places, and I'm turning them down. Like our focus is Texas, Louisiana. I want to be known in the Southeast, eventually get to 250 locations in the next 9 years. And we'll always know the first 100 is the hardest to get to. And then the next 150 will be half the time, because you'll have proven your concept. And so we're looking at Florida. We're looking at a couple territories in Florida. Atlanta is a big area that we're most likely going to get 2 investors to come in here soon. But yeah, we're going to grow within the Southeast, from Texas to Florida, up to Carolinas, across Tennessee, Arkansas. We want to be a household name in those states.
And is the development schedule, or I should say this development strategy, strictly multi-unit, or are you open to single unit operators?
I love single unit operators. The main reason I love them is usually they come from corporate America, where they're making $100,000 to $250,000 a year, and they're sick and tired of working 65 hours for someone else. And so they usually have management background. And what I love about them is they could come in and work 60, 65 hours a week as an owner operator at a store and absolutely crush it. They usually have a savings with a 401k that they usually have to put as a down payment, and they're our best franchisees. Now, I'll say multi-unit are also incredible, because they usually come with a management background, or they have a management team in place, and they get it. And so so we're open to them too. But we know that until we get to 50 stores open, we're going to continue having a lot of these single unit operators. But I'll tell you this, a lot of the single unit operators are opening up their 2nd and 3rd location right now. So that says something.
What's the investment range to open one location?
Investment range, you're all in around Texas, Houston, let's just say Houston, $750,000 to $800,000 all in. That includes operating capital, and that's after you receive your tenant improvement from the landlord, which is usually about $100,000 to $150,000.
Okay, and how far away do you try to keep the locations from each other?
So we like to be a local pizzeria we like the suburbs. Like, that's our bread and butter. And so in the suburbs, it depends on the density, but usually it's a 2-mile radius, which means 2 miles from north, south, east, and west of that location is the territory.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.